Welcome, Mental Health Monday family. It's so good to be here with you. We've missed being here with you for the last 2 weeks, but we've been doing lots of big things in our families. We've had great celebrations going on in our family and Dr. White's family. We've had 3 graduations, his daughter, our daughter, and my husband also graduated. So we've been doing lots of things and just been so blessed by God. But we're so happy that you are here with us. But we missed being with you guys the last 2 weeks, and we're happy to be back. How are you, Dr. White?
I'm really good. It's interesting how much we mirrored each other because your daughter
Okay.
graduated
Well, I
and your
see you.
husband.
I see you, and I hear you. I don't hear you. I see you. So I'm gonna try to fix my audio so I can hear you.
Testing one, two, three. Testing one, two, three.
It's not okay. I think if I see, then if I turn that up, I will echo. So we don't want that. Let
Testing
me
one,
see
two, three.
here.
Testing one, two, three. Testing one,
All
two,
right, Dr.
three.
White, can you talk again?
Testing one, two, three. Testing one, two,
All right,
three.
so I don't hear you. Okay, so maybe you can say some welcomes to our audience while I'm trying to figure out how I can hear you.
No problem. No problem. Well,
All
well, I
right.
do want to say welcome. Hopefully, Clint is here. Um, but yeah, it's interesting how much I mirrored Sister Tante because her husband and daughter both graduated, and my wife and my daughter both graduated. My wife earned her uh, doctorate in nurse practice, and my daughter, of course, got her bachelor's in public policy. So yeah, it was amazing how much we mirrored one another. Good to see you, Clint. I see you're here. Yeah, if you can put in the chat where you are coming to us from. Of course, I know Clint is coming from long, long something. But always a pleasure, man. Always a pleasure to interact with you. Let's see if you can put in the chat where you're coming from. We would really appreciate that. Yeah, this is graduation season, and it is amazing how easy it is to see a person graduating or see the high points and say, hey, I want that. Not being aware or connecting to the sacrifice, the toil, the difficulties, the sweat, the tears that's involved in that journey to get that thing that you're really after. So yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Long View. I knew there was some longs. Yes, Clint. So Long View, and I believe it's Texas, if I'm not mistaken. All right. I see Sharon Howard. Greetings to you, Sharon. And she is coming to us from Southern New Jersey. I wonder if you're near the oranges, because I know there's some oranges in New Jersey. Um, let's see. Anybody else? Yeah. So yeah, we're here with Mental Health Monday this time, and what we're going to be talking about is we are going to be doing questions and answers. So we so regret when like the questions flood in at the end. So be sure that you get your questions in the chat because we want to be able to address as many of them as we possibly can in the 1 hour that we're going to be spending time together. Have you noticed how quickly it goes? So we absolutely want to make the most out of it. So we are taking your mental health questions, and we are committed to bringing as much value to you as possible. Let's see. All right, we got Crystal Cox from Spokane, Washington. Hey, Crystal. I'm so glad you could be with us. Crystal is a longtime member here at Living Manna, and it's definitely great to see you. Great to see you in our chat, in our midst, and benefiting from the program. All right, let's see. Who is going to be that first person with a question? Who's going to be that first person with a question? Yeah, and what a wonderful time we had last time we met. Where yeah, we got some really great questions about communication. Boundaries often comes up. Let's
I'm
see if
back. Can
yes.
yes,
Can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear
Awesome.
you. I missed
Awesome.
everything you said, so all the welcomes that Dr. White said to all of you. And yeah, we're thankful
Well,
to be
well,
here.
you do the welcome way better than I do. That's for sure.
No, I didn't hear you, but I you were smiling and they're all here, so you did just fine. You did just fine. Yes,
Mm.
and I saw Clinton was here, and I said, "Hi, Crystal." I did hear you as soon as we turned on. I could hear you again. You were saying, "Welcome, Crystal Cox." So, want to welcome you too, Crystal. Great to see you here with us this evening. Always good to see you. So, I'm not sure if we have any questions yet. I'm
Yeah,
sure they're gonna. We
Clint,
do have a question. We
Clint.
have a question.
Yeah,
Oh,
he
here it is.
asked the questions. Have y'all ever had any clients that just seemed as if they couldn't be helped? You know, Clint, you know what's really funny about this? I remember like there's certain clients where what they explained seemed so overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, man, I don't know how I would handle that. But fortunately, I asked the question, so hey, what are you going to do? And they were able to immediately be like, well, all I have to do is this, and then this, and this, and then we'll just take it, and then we'll just take it from there. So the point being, sometimes what might seem as an impossibility to you, to that person, they actually have a way of dealing with it. Um, Clint, to answer your question explicitly, I have rarely, if ever, I cannot remember a situation where I walked out of the room just thinking, there's nothing that can be done, except, of course, if the person wouldn't participate in the treatment or if they rejected the treatment. That's the only time there's nothing I can do is if they won't participate. But as long as they're willing to participate, I've found avenues to help them. What are your thoughts, Sister Tante?
I agree with you, and that's been my experience as well. I always tell my clients that coming to their hour therapy appointment is just that's not where all the work is done. It's when they go home and they start, putting in the work that we talk about, encouraging them to make whatever changes maybe, or taking some of the tools that we talk about and actually implementing them into their life on a daily basis and being intentional about that. That's where the work is done. That's where the real hard work is done on a daily basis. And so if they're not willing to do those things, or if they're just kind of halfway doing them and not taking it very seriously, then they can be helped, but they're just not doing what they need to do. So that's been my experience. And then on the flip side of that, I'm always so amazed at those clients that are so good at doing their homework or so good at using the tools. And when they come back, I'm thrilled for them because they're making changes. Their change is happening pretty quickly.
Yeah, well said.
So,
Well said.
mm-hmm.
Sharon, thank you for this question. How can senior couples connect and keep their finances in check? Well, I think part of the answer is in the question, because I think connecting is a big deal. I don't know about you, but I bet you anything you guys have this nailed, you and Pastor Ivor, because you guys do your weekly dating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that's easy for us to not do as couples, especially when we're both super busy, is a regular meeting time. Sharon, put a one in the chat if you and your partner meet regularly, like especially like once a week, a minimum of an hour, um, because that solves so many issues. And
Mm-hmm.
if you treat it just like you would your typical board meeting or business meeting,
Right.
then now you can divide it into various factions.
Mm.
I talk about the seven vitals all the while.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's just a wonderful framework to comprehensively approach your life,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
now that meeting could address all seven of those vitals. And one of the vitals is resources, where
Right.
you would talk about finances. And
Mm-hmm.
so with that regular meeting, I think it's a space for you to deal with finances, make sure that there's alignment, and deal with the hiccups. And here's the most important thing about that. you're not now having these crazy meetings when one spouse is heading out the door. Like you
Mm-hmm.
get these moments that are not conducive to good communicating at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not meeting regularly, you can get hijacked into trying to solve issues in moments that are really not conducive to
Mm-hmm.
congruency, alignment, and moving forward as a couple. What are your thoughts, Sister Tante?
Yeah, I also like to share what Dr. John Gottman talks about. He talks about a weekly business meeting. And again, if you've been a part of a church or well, actually all the members can come to the business meeting, right? But he talks about a weekly business meeting that the couples that thrive and are successful in their marriages, they have the weekly date nights, but they also have the weekly business meeting. And I just thought about what you said about when to talk about these things. So the weekly business meeting is really talking about all the administrative things of the home that it takes to run the home and family. So you're talking about, okay, when this bill is going to be paid, or what the children have to do, or the dog has to go to the vet checkup, or I'm just administrative things of whatever about the home, so that when you're together, that's when all that's discussed, and you talk about all those things that are going to happen in that week. Then when you spend time together, you're actually not having to talk about all the business stuff, because you've already done that. So you can spend that quality time just spending great time with your spouse, talking about your passions and funny things and connecting and all of those things, not business stuff. So that's helpful for seniors and for actually everybody, for every marriage,
Absolutely.
because we can tend to um, become, we are partners. When you get married, it is your partner, but you can become almost like business partners, and just doing business stuff. And when you see each other, you're just talking business stuff and not, the passionate stuff and how much you love each other, and just having fun and maybe making dinner together or taking a walk and talking about the beautiful things and not the stressful things. Like there's a time for that. So just really carving out a time to talk about those things and a time to connect, which are those weekly date nights. So hopefully that answers her question.
Yeah, let us know if that answered your question. All right, Keith is asking the question. Hi, what do you do when someone doesn't accept something as truth? Obvious, objective, verifiable truth. For example, grass does not exist. Um, if we were in a therapy session or even a coaching session, I'd be like, Keith, tell me more about that.
Right. Yeah.
you know,
Really to
like
unpack that, because
like
that's.
unpack it, like say more about that,
Mm-hmm.
and really giving Keith an opportunity to explain. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could bring people on live?
I would. I've thought about that.
Wouldn't that
So
be
let's talk.
hot?
Let's talk about that off air, so
Let's
we can really
let's talk
maybe
about that.
maybe that will be the beginning of season 4. I think, since
You're yeah,
because after the summer break,
that's
let's talk
hot.
about it, because I think that really would be cool.
That would be
That really would be
really
cool.
cool.
I
So
want
all
to
right.
ask. I just want to say, to follow up with Keith, or really just to say that, if you can't control this person, you can't control other people. So unfortunately, this friend or this person that doesn't want to believe uh, truth, there's really nothing you can do about that. You don't have the power to change them. And so I wouldn't waste a lot of my time and energy on that. You can pray for people to grow in areas that they need to grow, and yeah, like Dr. White said, if we were in therapy, I'd ask you more questions. But just off of what you just said, I would say let them be who they are and pray for them to help that they will realize that the grass is green.
Yeah, I would need more details to comment on that.
For sure, for
Um,
sure.
Jason said, if a person doesn't feel connection with any human, should they stay single? I can't wait to hear what your thoughts are on this. 'Cause on a controversial level, Ellen White mentions there are some people who should not get married.
Well,
And
well.
I think it's something else.
Hmm.
People kind of approach dating as if everyone is kind of made for marriage, when in fact there are some people who, according to Ellen White anyway, are like unsuitable for marriage. Now, that
Yeah, I don't
said,
know what the context where she was coming from. I'd have to read that quote. But go ahead. I'm gonna let you finish. Go ahead. Go ahead. Continue.
well, well, whether you agree with her or not,
Mm-hmm.
the bottom line is you should devise your own criteria for how much connection do you need.
Mm-hmm.
So if you check in with yourself, what you're going to see that you need two things along the realm of this connection. You need time to connect with yourself. You need time to connect with that other person. That other person needs time to connect with you, and that other person also needs time for themselves. Never mind time with other people and all that other kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to determine what is the equation that will work for you. So obviously, there will be equations that will not work for you. Some
Mm-hmm.
people, you're going to see how much time they need to spend with themselves, alone, with family and friends, with their job. And you're going to make the decision, you know what? I need more time. Other people, they would be so smothering that you'd be like, I need more space.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want you to see that whether or not there's some humans that should stay single, the bottom line is when you establish your criteria, it will be pretty clear who fits and who doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yeah. Again, I can't go off that quote because I haven't read it for myself. And I know you read it, but I would love to see the context of what she was saying there.
Sure.
However, I would say that I think a lot of people who do get married have not done the work on themselves to be prepared for marriage. That's why there's so many issues. And when I say that, I mean there are so many traumas from our past that haven't been dealt with, and from both partners, right? And then they get married and then they find out like this is so hard. I have, and then they find out, all my issues that I've had all throughout my life, like they're really so prominent now that I'm here in marriage. And so it was never dealt with. So I would say that for this person, if you have a hard time connecting to, um, well, here it says with any human. So definitely, if you have a hard time connecting with any human, those are your words, and you have a hard time with emotions and things like that, and sharing those emotions or even receiving maybe positive emotions back from another person. I'm not sure. We don't have the details, but I definitely would want anyone that is feeling that way. And if you're feeling that way, Jason, I would love for you to meet with a mental health professional because there's a reason for that. Like God gave us emotions and feelings to connect. Like we're not, there's a, my husband's Jamaican, so my Jamaican mother-in-law always says like no man is an island, meaning you weren't meant to be by yourself, and God didn't mean for us to be by ourselves. And I'm not here to say I don't can't say it's God's will that every single person be married. I'm not saying that, but if you're having a hard time connecting to people in general, He doesn't want you to be alone. Like He didn't want Adam to be alone, so He created Eve. And we have all of these emotions and feelings that God gave us and created in us not connect with people. So I think that, talking with a mental health professional to just see where that comes from, and how, just talking to them more about that would be very beneficial.
There,
That's what I
there,
have to say.
there is a personality type called schizoid personality. If I'm not
Mm-hmm.
mistaken, it's schizoid, right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
cluster. This is a cluster C
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
personality, where these are people who love to be alone. They
Mm-hmm.
love to be alone. These are
Mm-hmm.
people who, like, for example, they love the night shift. Um,
Yeah.
and again, it's a personality disorder, but it's
Mm-hmm.
called schizoid. I believe it's schizoid. It's been so long since I've seen this,
Right. Mm-hmm.
but they and sometimes they do their job so well, like they might get a promotion, and now
Mm-hmm.
have to deal with people. And then that's when things kind of unravel because
Mm-hmm.
they love being alone. So,
Mm-hmm.
this is not to discount what Sister Tante just said, because we were made, God, when we're functioning and everything is normal, we were made for relationship. That's
Yeah.
true. But, Sister Tante, I found the Ellen White quotes.
Well, good. Good. I'm
So,
glad you
so,
found it.
so this is Messages to Young People, and she
Okay.
writes as follows: There are persons who have not been trained to self denial and who are so full of their own plans that they have no room for the plans of others. Such persons should not marry.
Now
Messages,
that right there makes sense. It kind of goes with what I was. That makes sense right
yes, what
there
you were talking
because
about.
they haven't dealt with their stuff. So, okay, go ahead. That makes
That,
sense.
that's Messages to Young People, page 452. Now, in the Adventist Home, she writes, there are persons who have no idea what constitutes a true home. They are not prepared to marry. They would bring into the marriage relation their unamiable traits of character. The
Mm-hmm.
Adventist Home, page 44.
So those both of those together are I understand where she was coming from there, but my point still stands that those two things they think things can change. Like they may not know now or like what you like to say until now. Like, I mean if they become aware and realize, I think like what Jason was saying, like, hey, I just don't connect to people very well. And he goes and gets the help and the healing, that story can change. Do you see what I'm saying? Even those who don't understand how to, like Ellen White was saying, how to have a healthy home, that can change too. You can learn that. You know what I'm saying? It's not like, well, you don't know it, so this is an impossibility. But it makes sense what she was saying. That the
Yeah,
quote makes sense now for
right.
sure.
And
Both of them.
Jason probably wasn't asking for himself. He was
Well,
asking
yeah,
for
I'm
a
not.
friend.
Maybe it wasn't for
He,
you,
he
Jason.
was asking
Sorry.
for a friend. So just FYI. Um,
Right.
but no. You, like you said, Sister Tanta, you said a lot of times people are not necessarily prepared, and what you're opening up the door for is that with preparation, maybe then they become
Mm-hmm.
suitable. All right, now I'm gonna put up this firecracker. My friends just
Perfect.
my friend just passed away, and her aunt is causing a ton of drama in the family. Sincerest condolences to you, as a
Mm-hmm.
result of the passing of your friend. Sincerest condolences. And you said her aunt is causing a ton of drama in the family. She's being manipulative, greedy, controlling, and a bulldozer to everyone. How can they navigate through her behavior? This is where the book Boundaries, I think, is just so vital. Two books I would think about. Number one is Boundaries, because it's always the same thing. You're always looking at making sure that your boundaries aren't violated. Have you drawn your boundaries? Have you educated the person about the boundaries, as well as identified what the consequences are for violating the boundaries and then exercising them, obviously within the extent of the law?
Mm-hmm.
And then the other book that's, I think, helpful in these kind of situations is the book Crucial Conversations. Crucial Conversations when the stakes are high. I think it can be incredibly helpful to understand how best you can you can set boundaries, but then have those conversations and maintain them in a productive zone. Um, clearly sometimes people are misdirecting their grief in a
Mm-hmm.
less
Yes.
than productive fashion. And so sometimes just, kind of putting your arm around the person and saying, hey, what are you experiencing? How are you
Mm-hmm.
experiencing this? Can be tremendously helpful. What are your thoughts, Sister Tante?
Yeah. I'm just looking here. She is being manipulative, greedy, controlling, and a bulldozer to everyone. Um, and so you're right. Boundaries, meaning the boundaries is to not, like, you can give somebody so much room to get so close to you to even be able to control. It sounds like, I mean, this is an auntie, right? And these are other adults. So what is, you if you set a boundary, you can, like, almost like push her back some, like she doesn't have direct access to you. And then there's a book by Mel Robbins. I don't know if I mentioned it here, but it's a new book that she put out, and it's entitled Let Them. And I just thought it makes so much sense. It's so simple. Meaning, when let them, meaning the family can't control her. They're not going to change her from being controlling or manipulative and being a bulldozer, right? But once she realizes that the family is not, she's not getting the rise or the reaction or, any of that from them, what drives her to be that way is not going to be, as she's not going to be as motivated to be that way, to make it simple. And so instead of stressing out about, all of her behaviors, set a boundary, and in your mind mentally just say, let her. Like, I can't, you can't control her. Like, what are you going to do to, you can't control her. You can just set a boundary, make your mental state and mind be at peace. And that's not an easy thing to do. And this is a difficult time because it's a grieving time, just lost a loved one. But not allowing someone that you cannot control to just, like they say, take space, or take space in your mind, and you're wasting all this time, and you're not even able to control or stop them. It's a waste of time. I would just say, let her, but set boundaries so she can't get so close to you. That was what I would say to that family.
You get the last word on that question. All right. So this is from Deborah Haling. Everybody feels some level of depression at certain periods in their life. How do you know when it becomes serious and help is needed? You want to
Okay,
take the first step? Or you
well,
want-
I was going to say there's a criteria for someone to be diagnosed with major depression disorder, and you have to have those feelings of um, just feeling, just so sad that it's hard to get out of bed, hard to take care of yourself, like hygiene wise, or just have no just no care, just don't have desires to do anything. And if that sadness lasts longer than 2 weeks, then you're considered to have major depression disorder. And so I would definitely reach out to want to talk to a mental health professional if you're experiencing something similar to what I described.
Okay. Yeah. So the idea being that I would pay attention to function.
Mm-hmm.
And so you if your mood is so from time to time something will happen and your mood of course will be down, but you can still function.
Mm-hmm.
The symptoms often they're short-lived, they're contained, but you can still get out of bed, you can still go to work, you can still do the various activities of daily living that we need to do as humans. So when we're talking about a clinical depression, it's the person now being debilitated. They can't get out of bed. All right. They're not attending to hygiene. They're, what else? What else? They are um, uh, sometimes progressively thinking about harming themselves. Things
Right.
are getting so bad.
Mm-hmm.
So function and severity of the symptoms are what determines whether you need to get clinical attention. So that's the big way that I would simplify it. And then Deborah came back with a follow-up question and she said, why is it when a person is depressed, why does light, whatever type, seem to bother them? You want to take a stab at that?
I'm sorry. Okay. Why, when a person is depressed, why does light? Okay, why does light, whatever type, seems to bother them? Like sun? You're talking to Deborah. Sunlight. You're talking about sunlight when you're saying light. I can't hear you, Dr. Wyatt.
Okay, what,
Okay, there it
say that
is.
again.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so I think I'm a little confused on a question. It says, why when a person is depressed, why does light, whatever type, seem to bother them? So I guess you're talking about like the light, like sunlight and lights in the room, those type of things. I'm gonna take a stab at this. I know that when I'm working with clients with depression, I have a client now and it's a telehealth. So I can tell like they're in their room, and at the first session, the room was dark, like the blinds were down and the shades were closed. They just didn't bring a lot of sunlight in. And I said, one of the things that I want you to do is I want you to open those blinds every day to bring um, light into the room. And I would say like their mood of depression makes them want to be so much in the dumps that they don't even want sunlight to come into their room. Like it's just that's too much of a happy looking thing, and they just don't feel the emotion of happiness. But I believe that when we are depressed, definitely getting outside, getting fresh air, walking, getting sunlight, that all helps with our state of our emotions. I mean, it's not doesn't fix it all. It doesn't fix it, but it's a component that can help when you're feeling down and sad.
Right. So, great question, Deborah. I'm gonna piggyback off of what Sister Tante just mentioned. So there can be sensory sensitivity. Depression can heighten your sensitivity to stimuli like light, especially major depressive disorder with melancholic features, atypical depression, or if it's comorbid with anxiety. Depression often involves dysregulation of the autonomic nervous system. So that's the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous
Parasympathetic.
system. So bright light can worsen symptoms like headache, eye strain, dizziness, and even like irritability. Depression can also classically be associated with fatigue and sleep disruption. So, a depressed individual can often suffer from insomnia or hypersomnia. They'll have poor sleep quality, but their circadian rhythm can be thrown off. And when you're sleep deprived or biologically misaligned, then even moderate light can be harsh or draining. It's like being in light is kind of draining, and the person's already kind of energy deplete. And then remember, there's also seasonal affective disorder confusion. So when light therapy, so it's true that light therapy can be a treatment for seasonal affect disorder, but at the same time, some depressed individuals initially feel worse when exposed to bright light. And again, this might be due to their misalignment of their biological clock. And then last but not least, there can be some comorbid conditions that occur with depression, things like migraine, things like post-traumatic stress disorder. So there can be quite a variety of reasons as to why people experience or have a difficult time with bright light.
Mm-hmm. Good question. Thank you, Deborah. Oh,
Uh,
that one went away. I was reading it and it went away.
what?
Oh, there
This
was
one?
another question by Sherry Love, I think. Okay. Do you have any techniques or books recommended help?
Okay. Do you have any techniques or books to recommend helping someone whose family of origin has caused self-doubt in the way one perceives things to be? Man, can you imagine a family that has not contributed to self-doubt?
Right, right. I was just trying to
Oh
think of a
man.
book, but I can't think of a specific book that hones in just on that. I don't know. Do you, Dr. White?
Um, of course, the book Codependent No More
Right.
um, is kind of jumping into my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But in dealing with self-doubt, Mel Robbins kind of writes about that, and
Mm-hmm.
Brene Brown, I think, they might have some good content on how
Mm-hmm.
to deal with self-doubt, as I
And
think.
yeah, and emotional focus therapy. I don't know why my her name is based on
Susan
that.
Johnson.
Yeah, Susan Johnson. Just understanding the attachment theories, I think, could also help with that as well. Um, has some good stuff in there. So, Sherry B. Love, you can look up all of those names that we mentioned and see what they have out there. And if any of those books that were mentioned would help, um, especially when you're talking about family of origin. Um, yeah.
Right. And then last but not least, of course, it's worth mentioning scripture. I
Of
mean,
course.
because I think scripture is one of the most powerful tools to validate you.
Mm-hmm.
Remembering that you're a child of a king, whether it's the Proverbs that
Mm-hmm.
helps you to balance um, s- self, like valuing yourself, but at the same time not being arrogant.
Right.
So yeah, I think scripture and one's faith can be really helpful in reminding us to not have self-doubt.
Mm-hmm.
God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power and a
Right.
sound mind. That's some solid content.
Crystal, amazing question. Great question. Great question. Great question. Um, um, yeah, this there is no we can't give a cookie cutter answer to this because everyone is different and is in a different space and their time frame is different as far as like how quickly they heal from the loss of a spouse. But I would say this: everybody's different, but I still highly, highly, highly recommend. Unfortunately, my sister in law, she's um, a young widow, and I have another really good friend who just lost her husband about 5 6 weeks ago, and so I'm familiar with you, Crystal, and I'm very familiar with their situation. So what I would recommend to anyone is to take your time. There is no time to be like, it has to be, okay, you're at a year point, so you're fine now. Like, it could be that you're at a year point and you're okay, that's okay. Like, everybody is different, but you definitely, I would encourage anyone in that situation, any widow, any widower, would to take their time because grief is it's just such a powerful thing that is always it's fluid, it's always moving, and it can surface in different areas. It goes in different ways for different people. People grieve differently, and so giving yourself that time to fully grieve and to be in a healthy space. And really, each individual should know, especially when they're working with a mental health professional. And that's what I would suggest to anyone who has lost a spouse, to work with a mental health professional, because you want to be in a healthy space with your grief before you could start considering dating.
Let me ask the question this way and hear your comment,
Okay.
Terry. What are the dangers of starting the date too soon?
You're not you if you try to date too soon and you're not healed in a healthy space with your grief, then you're going to bring that trauma into this new relationship.
And what
And
what would that look like?
it can look, I don't know, it can look a lot of ways. I mean, if you're
You
not,
you
if
could
you
choose
haven't
the
fully,
wrong person. You could choose the wrong
right,
person.
true, you could choose the wrong person. You can think that um, their presence, or is helping you get over the grief. But I feel like that shouldn't be dependent upon a person. That you should be in a healthy space because you have kind of worked through the grief with, I believe, with a therapist or a mental health professional, and then this person just comes into your life and they're like a cherry on top. You know what I'm saying? It's not like you're dependent upon them to be happy and to not grieve your spouse as much, because that just isn't the healthy space, because that person can go away, they can leave, they can be gone, and then you're just going to be right back. So yeah, but back to your point, you can definitely choose um, the wrong person because you're just using them to kind of cover up the pain.
So exactly. Well said, Sister Tante. And I just felt like if we can't give you what is too soon, but we can tell you the dangers of too soon. Danger
Mm-hmm.
number one is ultimately you could choose the wrong person. And a lot of times when we choose the wrong person, it's chosen from the platform of fear of loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
So the pain of being alone could drive you to choose the wrong person. And let's drill down a little bit more. Ultimately, people people will give you their warning signs.
Mm-hmm.
People will advertise their red flags. The question is, are you in a mental state to detect them?
Right.
And that's part of the too soon part. When
Mm-hmm.
if you're dating too soon, you can't
Mm-hmm.
even detect the red flags. I don't know about you, but I don't know if you've ever been driving and you've been driving too long. There's a point where your brain isn't processing the information that's coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Your eyes are open.
Mm-hmm.
You're awake, but you're so tired, you're not as responsive as
Mm-hmm.
normal to the information that's coming in. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the danger that a widow might be vulnerable to.
Right. And this is for Crystal and anyone else. When you're and yes, when you're having children, young children are in the situation, you have to be even more careful on how you're moving forward when you're doing that. So just saying that in general to
Right.
anyone.
So that was just one thing, is like you might end up choosing the wrong person, you haven't healed, you some of the things that issues you might have had with a past partner, now you're projecting onto this new partner.
Right.
um and if the relationship was formed when you had this need, heaven forbid, now you heal and you're like, I don't need this relationship, like I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what was going on when I formed it.
Right.
So again, we don't know what too soon is, but we do know the dangers of too soon, and those were just a few,
Right.
to answer that question.
And I want to
Great
say
question, Crystal.
it was a great question. And Veronica, thank you. Because I don't know why that book didn't pop into my head. I recommend that book to my clients all weekly. But this is for Deborah's question. Veronica said The Body Keeps Score could also be a good book. It does deal with trauma specifically, but the person, that Deborah asking the question, the person could be going through, there's pieces in there that can definitely help with family of origin issues, because usually there's trauma with family of
Mhm.
origin stuff. Um,
Okay, so May said, is it normal for individuals in a relationship and now about to get married to talk all their waking
to
hours?
talk all day.
Oh,
So
boy,
wait,
do I remember those
is it
days.
normal for two individuals in a
I remember those days. You remember those days where you would talk into
Oh,
the
they talk
sun?
about the wedding all the time. Is that what she's is that what this
No, no, I think it's talking into the sunrise. Like you talk so long.
Oh, okay, okay. Goodness, I totally missed that, guys. I was on an early flight this morning. I think I'm tired. Okay, okay. It's normal. Okay, yeah,
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 all it's kind of a
yeah.
it's kind of a sign of infatuation, and it's really cool. I gotta tell you, man, it is so cool when you continue to enjoy your partner past this honeymoon phase. Like
Right.
you just really like talking to each other, you like being with each that's it's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
Um,
you don't enjoy not being with them. Of course, you have to not be with them at times, work and different things, but you enjoy being with them.
yeah, this
You're
is
right. After the infatuation stage, that should continue. It's funny. Something happened to my husband and I, because we did used to talk um, in the early, just getting to know each other to like 2, 3 in the morning. We were talking on the phone, and just yeah, that would happen. We'd get to know each other on the phone. But it was this past weekend. We were somewhere and actually going to see my father-in-law. He's in a nursing home. We were going to visit, and I think we were holding hands, and walking down the hallway, and this lady said, "Are you guys newly married?" And we said, I said, "No, not at all." She's like, "But you're holding hands." Like, oh well, we like to hold hands, you know. But anyways, it's just, you know, you should always still date your spouse. That's my point. Like,
Amen.
yeah, always still date
Amen.
your
Well
spouse.
said. Well said. But that's beautiful when you can preserve what I call virgin love. That's just
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful.
All right. We're still getting more questions, but just to where that kind of the reason why that kind of stood out to me when that lady said that is when we were first married, we had just been married a few months, and we were at a large church event camp meeting. Like, so all the Adventists here know what camp meeting is, but and we were holding hands and walking around or something, and the one gentleman said, "You guys are," and then we really were newly married. He was like, "You guys have just gotten married?" We're like, "Yeah, within the last year." And he said, "You won't be holding hands like that, you know, many years down the road or whatever." And then we made a mental note to be like, we're always going to hold hands no matter what.
Beautiful.
And, you
Wow.
know, this is the camp meeting we were at for years. Like, we would visit like once a year, and we would run into this gentleman, and then we would still hold hands right in front of him. So we could say, "See, we're still holding hands."
Yeah, I
So,
mean,
anyway,
absolutely.
all right, we got more questions here.
My husband calls me from work 52 times a day after 7 years of marriage, so we still talk throughout the day.
Yeah.
That's called being in love, Amra, just in
That
case you didn't realize
that that
that.
is that is.
Let me see.
Yes,
Veronica
good for
said,
you, Veronica. 35 years of marriage and we still hold hands. That's great.
that's beautiful. That's
That is
beautiful.
beautiful.
Uh, Florence and I still hold hands. I will
Well, that's
definitely, yeah,
that's
we
what that's
still,
wonderful.
still
Yes.
hold hands. Computer froze. Thank you for your supportive comments. All right, Amber says, let's see. How soon is too soon? We already addressed that.
Mhm. Yeah, great relationship questions. Great questions overall. We're almost out of time, but we have enough time to take a few more questions. Well, let's see. Maybe all right, two more questions. Let's see who's going to be that person to ask that question.
Yeah,
These have been great questions, though.
absolutely. No, Crystal, thank you for sharing what you shared, and it's
Definitely.
quite a journey. But yeah, you're definitely giving yourself time to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
yes, absolutely. When you're dealing with a family unit, that's part of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Once in a while, you'll see children who are, in a sense, kind of forbidding the parent to
Oh
move
yeah,
on, if you will.
yeah.
And
That's
I just don't think it's the children's place at that point. I'm not, and I'm
it's
talking about grown children.
right, right,
Uh,
right. And
yeah,
no, no, it's definitely not their place. No,
I
definitely
don't think
not.
it's
Definitely
their,
not. But it's
barring
definitely not their place. It's not. Let's see. We had some questions.
things like cognitive decline and fearing that the person's going to be
Right.
exploited or something like that, barring those
Right.
kind of
Or if the
character
person is
issues.
just really a bad person and you're like, "Hey, mom, dad, that's not a good person." But besides that, okay, Veronica, how do you respond to family when they accuse you of loving your deceased husband's family more than you love them?
How do you respond to family when they accuse you of loving your?
So, I guess the deceased family of this family, they feel like you love those who have passed more than them. Well, that's a very unique situation, but um, again, sometimes again you can't control what people think. You can only control how you respond. And you know, speaking the truth to them. I mean, if you genuinely do like them and love them, you remind them how you do love and appreciate them, and you show that to them. But again, if they can't take that and understand that and accept that, then there's nothing you can do. right? Because you can't go on them and make them accept your love and appreciation and respect that you do have for them. Maybe they're just, I don't know, for whatever reason, not willing to believe what you're saying, or they're not your actions. For some reason, they're not believing your actions that are showing that you do care and love for them. Yeah, it's a very unique situation if someone's
Yeah.
that's in that.
Yeah, there's definitely limits at times. Um, but you're bringing to mind my concept. Don't get furious, get curious. Don't get furious, get curious. And what I mean by that is I would really utilize this as an opportunity to find out as much information as possible about why they feel the way they do. You
Right.
know, here's this accusations. Hey, so you feel like I love my deceased husband's family more than I love you. Tell me more about that. That's such of an important. Tell me more about that. And I mean give them a chance to really articulate where they're coming from and exhaust it, you know, and just really hear them out. At minimum, you might walk away with some clarity as to what they're thinking and
Mm-hmm.
where the derangement is taking place. But at least
Mm-hmm.
you'll have absolute clarity. And at maximum, you might be able to pinpoint and speak with pinpoint precision as to what might help them gain some clarity. That's at maximum. There's no guarantee, but at least you'll walk away being really clear about where they're coming from. Um, and being able to say, hey, I can at least see why you're thinking that way. I don't necessarily agree, but at least I can see where you're coming from. And then you can at least take it from there.
Mm-hmm.
When we have clarity, then we can have movement.
Mm-hmm.
But where there's obscurity, opacity, translucency, like when we can't see, it's hard to make movements, it's hard to make decisions, it's hard to draw conclusions.
There's a question that's not on there that I want to answer next, and that's this one and this one that I'm looking at. But do you can answer the one you can answer. Frankly
When it,
speaking, how do I prepare for single life after 30 years of marriage? And then I'm going to take
okay, how
Takara's
do I
one.
prepare for single life after 30 years of marriage? Frankly, one of the problems that we struggle with as humans is valuing the phase that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of married people are looking forward to being single. A lot of single people are looking forward to being married. Employed people can't wait to retire, and unemployed people can't wait to get a job. It's just this incessant inability to appreciate the moment that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that said, frankly, if you're looking at single life, it might help to remember some of the things you sacrificed as a result of 30 years of marriage. No question, there are positive aspects of being married, but it does require some sacrifice. It does require, on some level, muting your personality. My wife, for example, can't stand it when I'm listening to music really loud. Well, but I like listening to it. And I'm not even talking about super loud, but unless, of course, it's her song, then she likes it loud.
Yeah. Then she's like, "That's my jam, huh?" And
That's
then
my
she
jam.
like,
And she likes it loud.
then she's happy
But
about it.
but the point is being there are times where you mute an aspect of yourself that now in your single life you can revisit that. Some people were wanted to be more artistic. They wanted to travel more. They wanted to nurture a pursuit or a hobby. Well, now you can step into that. You can embrace it, and you can absolutely enjoy it. So, frankly, the goal would be, look, I'm going to try to avoid making the mistake of not valuing the phase that I'm in, and I'm going to make the most of it
Mm-hmm.
as it
Mm-hmm.
aligns with your values and all and morals and all this other kind of stuff.
Good, good answer. Good question. So, um, Takara has a question, which is a great question. Is is it wrong to date outside of your faith? Do they have to be Seventh Day Adventists? Why is it frowned upon in the church to marry outside of our faith if they are believers in Christ? So, great question. The Bible talks
I see you,
about
Takara, trying to start some trouble here.
so no so the Bible talks about not being unequally yoked, and you're saying, well, hey, they're a Christian, we both believe in Jesus, and that's fantastic, that's great. However, there's more in the Bible than I mean, Jesus teaches some principles that are not adhered to by everyone. So, like, let's just say, so the person you want to date that's not a Seventh Day Adventist, and okay, there's so many ways that we could
Denominations.
talk about this. Like, let's just say if they're young, and you're young and you haven't had children yet, and so you're going to have children together and grow this family together, and so you want to go to church, you're going to go to church on the Sabbath, and this person's going to go to church on Sunday, which it's not a sin to go to church on Sunday, but you're trying to, what are you representing to your children, what are you teaching your children? It's very confusing to the children. um, then there's, you know if you're a Seventh Day Adventist, you believe in this. You believe the dead know nothing, right? And maybe they believe they can talk to their dead grandmother who they love so much, who's in heaven now. There's all these different things. There's just so many different things, and then just practical. So, like, you're wanting to keep the Sabbath at home, and you want it to just be pure, like 24 hours of just worshiping God, and they're like, no, the game is on, so let's turn on the football game. I'm giving you real life examples here. I mean, it's going to be different in every situation, and that just, that it's going to, it can cause conflict within the marriage. Are there people who have done it and the other person, they've done it and the other person actually becomes a Seventh Day Adventist, or they of the same faith? That's fine too. I wouldn't want somebody to become a Seventh Day Adventist, or I wouldn't want them to become a Catholic or anything because of the other person. Like, you need to want to do what you're doing because of your relationship with God and not because of another person. But there's just so many things. Those were just small little examples I could throw out there. It's really because it's not that they're not true Christians. It's not because they're bad people by any means. It's just it's difficult to operate a home with two different belief systems.
Well said, man. Well said. I think let's start the discussion with marriage is a 50% failure rate. Okay,
Right.
let's just start
It's
there.
already hard.
Let's just start there. Okay,
It's hard when you
marriage.
do believe the same religion.
I'm saying, like, your marriage by itself is a hard thing, with a super high failure rate when you think about it.
Yeah, it
So,
is.
given given the stakes, because if the marriage survives, the legacy is so amazing. The protection offered to the children, I mean, just amazing. Even the health that's conveyed to both people, more men than women, I'll grant you that. But even the health that's conveyed, out of this world, right? Um, but with something so high stake and yet so high risk, wouldn't you want to do everything possible to increase the likelihood of it succeeding, given how challenging it is? And then you come with the issue of Seventh Day Adventists. One of the things that's unique about Seventh Day Adventism as a denomination of Christianity is it is peculiar. It is unusual. Our approach to the Sabbath, it's unique. I'm not talking about whether it's right or whether it's wrong. I'm just talking about what it is. From a doctrinal standpoint, it is something taxing how we approach it. So what that means then is it's ripe for so much conflict when a person approaches it in a different way. Now
Mm-hmm.
that this is going with what Sister Tante was listing. But what I'm emphasizing is it's a 50% marriage, is a 50% failure rate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the interesting thing is there are some statistics, though, that when there's increased compatibility, that failure rate actually goes down.
Mm.
So, just some things that I would
Mm-hmm.
want to share.
Mm-hmm. Um, just, I think, Teresa Hatton, you might want to clarify a little bit that when you were sharing about, she's, I don't think you're, well, I think she might have missed, well, you might want to clarify it a little bit. After 30 years of marriage, our relationship, you missed that person, that last thing you would think about what you couldn't do when you were married. I think she's saying like she's been married 30 years. She's not thinking about wanting to be single, or I don't know. I don't know if it's connected to that. Remember when you were saying married people, they're not being, when you were talking about people not being happy in their present situation, everybody's looking like married people want to be single and single people want to be married.
Oh no, no, good point. Like
Okay. I
that is
think,
in no way to convey that you, in
right.
particular, Teresa, were unhappy while you were married. That is in no way to convey that. So thank you for giving me the chance to clarify that.
Yeah.
I was just using that as an example
Mm-hmm.
of how sometimes we don't enjoy a situation as much because we're distracted by what could be. But that
Mm-hmm.
obviously is not true for you, Teresa. Obviously is not true for you. In your
Right.
situation, it seems like, yeah, you loved all aspects of marriage, and now you would just use that same talent and love aspects of being single. I
Right.
think if in fact, you really did enjoy the relationship, the way I believe that you did, I think you can go forward knowing your partner is thrilled to see you happy even in this next
Mm-hmm.
phase.
Mm-hmm.
If the relationship is as rich as I believe it was for you, I'm sure your partner would want
Mm-hmm.
you to enjoy this next phase. Much the same way, Teresa, I'm sure you would want your partner to enjoy, singleness. You would be sad to see them in some way muting their experience. But no, thank you for the opportunity to clarify. Um, no, not everybody is unhappy in marriage. In fact, there are a lot of people who are very happy in marriage. So
Yes.
thanks for the opportunity to clarify that.
Yes. Just, I think your biggest point really is like learning how um, to be happy in the present, in the space that God has you in at this time, right? Not to
Exactly.
look over and be like, be happy with right now. Married, single, this is where God has you be happy. If, I mean, there could be things in the marriage that can cause you to be unhappy. I get that. But yeah, I think that's the general thing that you were trying to say too. All right. So, well, we are all done for this evening. We want to thank you for your questions. They were great. You definitely um, you guys have great questions, and they were all just all around, like touching all different areas. And so, we just really appreciate your questions. Hopefully, by God's grace, we gave you good answers. He probably gave you better answers today. I'm so tired today. I was on an early flight and then came and worked, and so yes. But by God's grace, you were blessed, and so we want you to share this. Definitely share this link on your social media. People don't have to watch it live; they can catch it after and get. They can't ask their questions, but they can get some answers to maybe questions they have as well. And we want to see you guys. We will not be here next week, actually, but we will return the week after that. However, catch True Health Tuesday because Dr. Maria will be here with you guys on Tuesday. And you don't want to miss her wonderful program to give you all those wonderful tips on how to eat a healthy life and how what you eat can actually be healing and helpful to your body. So you don't want to miss that. But we want you right back here in 2 weeks for another Mental Health Monday. And we are just so thankful you were with us. And have a good evening. God bless you.